I really thought I would like that too. Like, I played the demo and I was like, man, this isn't nearly as over the top as I thought it was going to be.
Well, like, it's not like, oh, Dabara, super, but it's a fun shooter with lots of cool stuff going on.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 31 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards, and I'm currently pissed off because people are playing Diablo 3, and I'm not.
I'd like to lodge my disappointment and pissed offness as well, and I'm Steven Taylor on the boards.
And then we have our resident Diablo 3 hater, naysayer, and Dungeon Siege 3 lover.
You know what game
I really like? That's good. All right, moving on.
I really like Titan Quest.
You know, I never played Titan Quest.
It's pretty fun.
I want to play Diablo. I've never played Titan Quest.
You know what? Is it called Diablo?
No, but
then screw it.
But it is Diablo 2.5.
All right,
Diablo 2.5.
Well, let me break it down. Every hack and slash RPG that has come out since Diablo 2, Torchlight included, and don't get me wrong, I like Torchlight, is just Diablo 2.5. It's, hey, that game was cool. Let's add more stuff to it.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's great, but Diablo 3 is not Diablo 2 with more stuff in it, which is why it will be awesome.
No, exactly. So we have...
And if Blizzard, my email address is stevenm@rpgfan.com, so when you can get that beta code out to me now.
Well, they've only started the beta for, friends and family of Blizzard employees, correct?
No, it's out to regular people now, too, I think.
Blizzard, come on. We're like your podcast. We're just pimping Diablo 3 all the time.
We are free advertisement. We can advertise better if we have the game.
Yeah, I know, right? We can do better. So obviously there's a lot of Diablo 3 to be talked about as soon as one of us gets the beta, and probably if Steven gets it, I'll kill him and take it, and vice versa. But there are lots of other releases going on right now, including the game with the trailer that I swear to God, if I read one more review with a mention of that trailer. I can't remember. John, did you mention the trailer in your review?
No, I mentioned it in the update for the review, but I didn't actually mention it in the review itself, which was funny because I was originally intending to.
Okay, I'm just so we're talking about Dead Island, obviously, and I'm so freaking tired of people talking about this trailer. Like, the trailer that came out in February was gorgeous. It was awesome. It was, like, probably one of the best put-together trailers. Totally CG, no gameplay, and we all knew that it wasn't going to have anything to do with the actual game.
But honestly, brilliant on Deep Silver's part.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if the game has nothing to do with the trailer. It got so much hype.
Exactly. Like, they got attention. This was a game that correct me if I'm wrong, this game was announced in 2005. So, like,
it was?
I thought it was announced this year.
No.
It was announced this year too.
Go ahead, Wikipedia that right now. That game was announced years ago, and everybody had forgotten. I thought it was shovelware. I didn't think there was any chance it was going to come out. And then that trailer comes out. Everybody gets excited for it. But it's like everybody is complaining about the fact that this game, doesn't have you killing children and making deep philosophical decisions about zombies. John, prove me if I'm right. Have we already lost Steven? Okay, I'm just going to keep going. Prove me right or wrong on this one. To me, it's just Borderlands with melee weapons, right?
It's Borderlands, but not as good with melee weapons.
Ooh.
Like, I really enjoyed Borderlands. Borderlands was an incredible amount of fun for me. Like, even though I don't like Diablo that much, I don't have a problem with that style of gameplay. Like, Borderlands, which is essentially Diablo with guns, was a very fun game. And I think, the overall structure of both games are pretty similar. You have action RPGs that are both oriented around loot, that have a very, very weak quest system, and pretty much is about, okay, can you find 3 friends? Good. You will have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Borderlands.
That's what we were talking about. Steven is back on the show now.
Sorry, I only caught the end of that.
All right, so, no, we were actually talking about how Borderlands and Dead Island were exactly the same. The problem is Borderlands doesn't really do anything wrong. Borderlands is fun all the way through. It's got it's very quirky. And here's the most important thing: the loot is good. Like, there's many different weapon types. There's many different things going on, and that's kind of my gripe number one with Dead Island is the loot sucks.
Aren't there like flaming baseball bats and stuff?
Well, here's the thing: you get and here is the thing.
Here indeed is the thing.
Take a shot, everybody.
So there's essentially, I don't know, 4 or 5 different weapon types. And they really all belong in 3 main branches. You have edged weapons, you have blunt weapons, and you have firearms. And anything tends to be, so I have I'm playing as Sam B. I've got my game up right now. So I've got a sickle, I've got a machete, I've got a baseball bat, a sledgehammer, a pistol, and an assault rifle. Really, I only have 3 weapons. Yeah, they have different stats, and one of my baseball bats has nails in it, and one of my baseball bats is on fire.
He's got a board with a nail in it.
Which, just quick aside, totally nothing to do with Dead Island. I saw that World of Warcraft is introducing the ability to transform items. Mm-hmm. So you can have any item look like any other item at cost. And I'm very excited to see just how many of my friends and my father will have their high-level equipment be a board with a nail through it.
I would be okay with that. I like the Simpsons joke. So now, if Dead Island is kind of, if you're not digging on the loot, and that's kind of the main driving force of the game, so what does it have to fall back on?
Well, the game has a very, very, very entertaining melee combat, and I that is a caveat. It's just the melee combat that's entertaining. So hey, I just got an achievement. I turned the game back on to play around here, and the game does a very good job at letting you have. It's a very visceral combat. If you've played, as I mentioned in my review, Condemned or the Chronicles of Riddick, mm-hmm. The melee combat is very, very reminiscent of that. You can attack these zombies in different areas. If you slash them in the arms, you'll cut their arms off. You can slash them in their legs. You can decapitate them immediately. And it does a very good job at having entertaining melee combat. The problem is the gunplay is the exact opposite. If you've played any of Techland's other games, like Call of Juarez, it's kind of that same, well, I have guns, but who cares? Mm-hmm. And what's actually works well for the game is that guns suck against zombies.
Guns don't kill zombies. Baseball bats with nails in them that are aflame kill zombies.
Well, pretty much.
I think what John's pointing out, though, is like we're so inundated with shooters right now. Like every big release feels like it's a shooter. And if you don't match up to the best shooter combat, then it immediately looks bad. And it sounds like Dead Island should have just stuck with what it was doing well and maybe developed it more. Like you brought up Condemned. Like Condemned's melee combat was freaking awesome. Like just smashing a dude's face into a TV. Like that was just so
it felt
visceral.
Really brutal.
Yeah, it felt awesome. And I'm just like, I really wanted a game to come out and do that. So is Dead Island, it's kind of like it's good with the melee combat and like
the melee combat's very entertaining. It does get tough if you get caught by a bunch of different enemies, mm-hmm. because so I ended up with Gabriel's sledgehammer for a big chunk of the game, which you get from one of the main story quests, and it's a legendary level sledgehammer, but it's also very slow. So you get caught by these enemies and you swing and you get hit by the time before your swing finishes. So you don't really have, you have to kick, because the kick is the only attack that isn't interrupted by enemies. And it's kind of, I need to get everybody out of here. Let's kick all of them. Mm-hmm. The game also has really interesting skill trees. So I played a little bit as all 4 of the characters, but I played the great majority of the game as my playthrough as Sam B. And Sam B is the washed-up rapper who
voiced by Phil Lamar, right?
Yes.
As all black characters in video games seem to be these days. It's Phil Lamar or I don't know. It's pretty much just Phil Lamar.
Hey, Vamp was voiced by Phil Lamar, and he was pale like a vampire.
I have a feeling Phil Lamar and Nolan North could voice entire video games on their own.
Oh, and don't forget Jennifer Hale.
I would enjoy that.
Jennifer?
You say that as if I would not like that.
Isn't Jennifer Hale also doing a voice in Diablo 3? I think she is.
Probably.
I just want Nolan North to be the wizard, so that way he can make freaking Nathan Drake quotes. He'll be like, "Oh, perfect!" when you walk into a room full of freaking lightning enchantments.
So each of the 4 characters in Dead Island, getting off of our voice actors, have their own unique skill trees. So Sam B is good at blunt weapons. Logan is good at thrown weapons, being a former football guy. Perna is good at edged weapons, and Jean May is good with pistols. Well, each of them have their own individual skill trees. So, like Sam B's special ability that I got that was incredibly useful was if I knock over a zombie, I can curb stomp them and immediately kill them. So it's cool that it's not because in Borderlands, even though your characters had each class had a unique ability, it really didn't feel like the characters were any different. You could play as any of them and get the exact same experience, and it's not quite the same here because they do have unique skill trees and they have unique abilities beyond that first one, which is a good plus here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was kind of like you said that the loot in Borderlands was really good, and we've talked a lot about Borderlands on the show. Like, I thought the loot was good, but there was I didn't know, like, I would often forget who I was playing as, like, which character, because the skill trees were so boring. And this gets to Dead Island. In Borderlands, most of your upgrades, most of your ability points that you're putting into skill trees, they just gave you statistical bonuses. Is that the same way in Dead Island, or are you doing, like, completely radical things, like shooting out an army of toads, for example?
No, there aren't completely radical things. So there are 3 skill trees: Fury, Combat, and Survival. Fury is Fury is a big part of the game. That's your kind of like special meter bar. When you attack zombies, your rage bar fills up, and you hold B, and you go into, and at least for Sam B, I actually didn't do any of the other rage stuff. For Sam B, you kind of turn into this hand-to-hand berserker, and you just punch zombies and they explode.
Yeah, cool.
So all the rage stuff, it tends to be purely statistical. So for Sam B, it's rage gained when doing this, damage less when you're in Fury mode. Fury lasts longer, and each punch sends enemies into the air. Rage required, lowered. Health increased while you're in rage mode. Whatever. Same with Survival. Survival is all kind of okay. You regenerate health faster. You loot more money. You get more ammo. You can lockpick. That's an interesting one. I didn't go very far down in the survival tree, but some of these are interesting. You get double or triple experience if you break enemies' bones. So there is some stuff here.
So DMX would be at an advantage in that game.
I don't get it.
Oh, well, that game, that old wrestling game, Def Jam, that had DMX in it, all his moves involve breaking bones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, moving on.
But that is one of the good things about the game, is that it has these interesting skill trees which kind of make up for the crappy loot. Like for the first 7 or 8 hours in the game, your loot is pretty much okay. What do you have? Broken broomstick, crappy sickle. It's stuff that is not interesting. You actually don't even get your first pistol unless you're Jean May. I don't remember if it's Jean May or Perna who's pistols, but you don't get your first pistol until 6 or 7 hours into the game, and it's good because that's the first time you really see a human enemy.
Mm-hmm.
But
wait, like a non-zombie?
Yeah, most of the enemies throughout the first big chunk of the game are all zombies. You get human enemies eventually and they start appearing more and more once you get into there's a city. Once you get into the city, you have more humanoids, or humans, I suppose, because zombies are humanoid, to fight. But I don't know. There's something about the shooter combat that just bugs me about this game.
Does it just feel unresponsive?
Well, so I think my big issue is you get it follows as just about every shooter in the past 7 years has the Call of Duty thing, where, yeah, you have a reticule that gets bigger if you shoot, but you can aim down the sights and all that kind of fun stuff. Aiming down the sights is unhelpful. It feels like Fallout New Vegas, where the iron sights get in the way more than they actually help.
Ooh. So again, it just gets back to what the game does well is the melee combat, and it just kind of feels like the shooting combat's just kind of there. It's funny that we're talking about Dead Island, and I'm starting to. You could easily make it sound like we're talking about Dead Rising or something like that.
Which totally, I honestly feel like part of what Dead Island does with its loot is, okay, so you have these 3 classes of weapons, but each of these 3 there's also explosives, so I suppose there are 4 classes of weapons, and you go and you can modify them. So you can have, you can attach like electrodes to your machete, and when you chop in zombies' arms off, they are electrocuted. If they stand in water, you get more damage. There are systems in place that are worthwhile, but I forgot what I was talking about. I know I'm talking about weapon modifications, but I don't remember what my point was. What did you ask me, Rob? I don't remember.
I can't remember either.
You see, the kids, they listen to the rap music.
We just had
the jazz is all about.
We just had an Alzheimer's moment on the podcast. All right, I'm going to ask about questing now.
Oh, Dead Rising. You were asking about Dead Rising.
That's what I was talking about. Waffles. Tasty waffles.
Dead Rising does the whole weapon modification and creation thing 10 times better than Dead Island was. Like, I had so much fun, even early on in the game, where you're like, oh, bucket plus drill equals I have a drill helmet that I'll toss on zombies' heads and they'll die. That's so much more entertaining than the kind of modification stuff that you get in Dead Island. And Dead Island's like, okay, do I want something on fire? Do I want it to electrocute something, or do I want it to explode? Also, one thing that really bugs me is I know that this game was developed in Europe, but all of the cars, the driver's side, is on the right.
Oh.
And when I go to get into drive and I get into the passenger seat, I go, damn it. And I have to get out and go back in the driver's side.
Well, now, the other thing about this game that really struck a lot of people was, the absolutely gorgeous looking environments. Like, it looks like a really pretty game. Does it hold up in actual gameplay that way when it's actually running? Or
So, as I mentioned in my review, so in the Xbox 360 version, there are a lot of glitches and there is a lot of pop-in. Both when you load a new environment and you have a whole bunch of texture pop in, that and when you're walking around the, kind of the jungly areas, stuff like ferns and that sort of thing pop up, and it's really visible. It's not like some games where you can see them pop in way in the distance. No, it's like they pop in like 20 feet in front of your character. And it's really unfortunate because the game's environments are really pretty. It's just they have nothing but a bunch of pop-in.
How do the zombies look? Are the zombies cool?
So the zombies look good, and in every area the zombies have different stuff that they're wearing, and they
except the women, right?
The women always wear bikinis.
Oh, gosh.
The bikini zombies, just about everywhere.
And we wonder why, there's a chauvinistic attitude going on in video games.
To be fair, all of the zombies that have bikinis on are on the beach.
Okay, all right, I'll give them that.
When you get into the urban areas, the women zombies are not wearing bikinis.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's good.
All right, that's much better, actually. Just trying to make sure. So,
but, the human characters, I don't think look as good. Because they kind of have living eyes, they're supposed to be, they look around as opposed to zombies, which are supposed to look crazy. And it doesn't really work. It gets kind of in that uncanny valley.
Yeah.
And there were certain cutscenes where I would watch Sam B and I'd freak out at his eyes because it just wasn't right.
So overall, it doesn't sound like Dead Island's an atrocious game. It doesn't sound like it's a bad game.
Yeah, the problem with Dead Island is Dead Island, for every cool thing that Dead Island does, it does something wrong. And the quests are not. That's one thing I forgot to touch on. The quests are not very fun. I know we talked about that when we were comparing it to Borderlands. Every quest is, okay, escort me, go kill a bunch of zombies, or find this thing for me.
So we keep bringing up Borderlands. Like, I gotta try it. Maybe the third time with Borderlands will be the charm. Like,
no, you need to just play it multiplayer with me.
I don't know. I really didn't like the multiplayer with Borderlands. Like, you remember the editorial that I wrote at the beginning of the summer, and I talked about how, like, Borderlands does that absolutely atrocious thing where, like, if you're level 6 and you try to do a level 7 quest, you just can't win.
It's not quite that drastic, but yeah, it does do that.
Yeah, and that
actually issue with Dead Island about levels. So enemies scale to your level in Dead Island, but they scale only to the level of the host of the game.
So you could bring in somebody that literally is carrying around like Thor's hammer and could just like whack their whole way through the game.
So Kimberly and I were playing, and because she was working on Crimson Alliance, we were not playing all at the same time, the multiplayer, and we also ran into the issue where I was host and she was fighting a thug, which is just pretty much a zombie that doesn't move as fast but knocks you over, and literally the thug would hit her once and she would die.
Whoa.
And
that sucks.
So whenever she was playing with me so we could try out the multiplayer, she would have to host because otherwise she would just die constantly.
Yeah. That's the way I felt playing Borderlands a lot. Like, if I went and did, like, a quest that said it's going to be tough, I'd get there and, like, 2 shots later I'm dead, and I'm like, oh, come on. Like, what the hell, guys? And then I'd come back after leveling up once, and, I could literally just, like, take so much more punishment. And I don't know, like, that was a disconnect. Do you feel that when you're playing Dead Island as well? Like, it sounds like it's kind of there.
Well, it's only in multiplayer when you have people with different levels, because the game scales everything.
Yeah.
So if you're playing in single player or you're host, nothing feels wrong because they are.
Sorry,
Steven, what was that?
Sorry, I'm playing Xenoblade and I killed a really hard monster.
Which, to all of our readers, we will be having a Xenoblade podcast. It should be the next one, I think.
Yeah, I think we're going to do one next podcast just because that is like the big JRPG release of the year, and we want to give that game a lot of coverage. I know that, what was it, Project Snow, whatever many people want to play about.
Rainfall.
Yeah, Operation Rainfall.
So,
sorry to interrupt, though. But.
I just fell through the world in Dead Island. I didn't have a whole lot of bugs the first time through. I heard people did, but that's the first thing I ran into.
You just fell through the world?
I just fell through the world. Literally, a thug knocked me over, and I fell through the world.
Did you see the devil from, what was that movie, Legend?
No.
I kind of feel like he would be at the bottom of the world. What? Tim Curry. Like, if you're going to imagine someone
falling through the universe, you will find Tim Curry.
No, I'm just earning style points right now because my girlfriend's in the room and she loves that movie. So I'm just trying to get a Legend reference into the podcast. John, give us a final thought on Dead Island.
Dead Island is fun and entertaining, and if you like melee combat in shooters, you will like this. I feel the same way about Dead Island that I do about any of the Fable games. They're not bad games, they're just bad RPGs.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that happens, and I think we talked about how, RPG elements are in almost every video game today, and it's, sometimes it can really work for the game's advantage and you feel like you're getting stronger, and sometimes it's just numbers, Yeah.
I mean, and there is a very distinct, it's a level up system and all that kind of fun stuff. It's a legitimate RPG in that sense, but it's just not a very good RPG. Oh. The story is absolutely abysmal. It's, we're on an island, let's get off. Oh, there are zombies.
Wait. Let me predict it. And then there's the military involved. And they want to use it as a weapon, and they want to use the zombie virus as a weapon.
No, there's military involved.
Okay.
Is it Umbrella? Does Hunk come down and try to kill you?
No, but Tofu does, and it's way more badass.
That would be awesome.
Tofu.
Huh?
Wait, is Hunk? I thought Hunk was the name of the tofu in Resident Evil.
No, you're right. Hunk. No, wait. No,
Hunk is the Umbrella Special Forces guy. Yes. Tofu is the giant block of tofu.
Yes, I can see how this was easily confused, though.
Yeah, that actually does make sense.
No, it does. It does.
Tofu made a funny noise when he got hit too, because he'd be like, "Nah."
All right. So, is that enough Dead Island? Do we want to talk about Digital Devil something or other, some Shin Megami Tensei game.
Let me break it down for you. It's Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil. Crap, you screwed me up. It's Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor Overclocked.
Okay, that's not nearly as bad as Raido Kuzunoha versus Army of
Soulless Army. Nerp bugs.
All right, so this is the 3DS release, right?
Yes. It's the 3DS version. It's, I guess, to break it down for anyone that's not aware, although they might be if they're already interested. It's the same game as the DS version, but it has higher resolution graphics to fit on the screen. They've made a bunch of tweaks and additions here and there. And if you haven't played it, it's the best version of the game, and it's very long, totally replayable, and a complete freaking blast.
Is it going to take advantage of the second analog nub, which is going to be put on the 3DS?
Oh my god.
It's don't get me started on that.
We're talking about that in news.
But
it's not. Well, I suppose we should. It's not really RPG related, but I guess we can.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. I will wait.
But like if you've played the original a lot, you may not get as much value out of it. But I did. I beat the original twice, I think, and I didn't get all the endings. I watched most of them on YouTube, but they've added enough stuff that if you've played it before, it's still a lot of fun to play. First of all, they added turbo mode to combat, and it's a strategy RPG. So turbo mode is amazing because I'm able to get through all these pointless menial battles that I already know the story or whatever. Because the big thing in the game is the 8th day scenario. The game takes place over 7 days, or originally did, and now there's an 8th day that takes place after the final battle of the original game that continues the story. They did forget to mention, and this is kind of sad, certain paths in the game, notably the best one, mine, do not have an 8th day. It makes sense in the context of the story, but it still sucks because they don't give you any sort of indication. Like when they were advertising the game and, when they talked about it, they never once mentioned, oh, by the way, not every story has an 8th day. But fortunately, the game now has 3 save slots, which it didn't have in the original, so it's much easier to go back, and that's what I ended up doing and pick a different path. They added, I can't remember if the original, I'm pretty sure the original had New Game Plus, but they've added New Game Plus if it wasn't in the original, and I honestly can't remember. They added an easy mode. They added voice acting, which is not terrible, but not awesome.
Yeah, we got demoed some of it at E3, and it really didn't seem as impressive as Atlus's usual fare for voice acting.
Yeah, because especially after Digital Devil Saga, I mean, or even Catherine, I mean, the voice acting in those games was awesome.
Yeah. Catherine had good voice acting. You know what? We're gonna have to bleep this, but my favorite line in that game was, "F***ing blocks! I'm going to climb the shit out of you."
I think we have to leave it in. My stance on Catherine. Probably one of the most overrated games of this year.
But
did you play that on normal yet, John?
No, I beat it on easy, and then that was enough for me.
Yeah, I went back and I started playing some of the last levels on easy. There is no comparison between easy and normal. Normal is just the not fun version of Catherine. Easy's the one that kind of makes you feel smart and is kind of a challenge. Normal just curb stomps you harder than Demon Souls.
Impossible. No,
I'm serious. And I'm sorry, that game's story just absolutely crapped itself inside out at the end. I'm sorry. I know, it's not an RPG, but I just want to say I think Catherine's a little overrated, and I think it's the result of not a lot of good JRPGs and not a lot of good Japanese games coming out this year.
At least whenever they release a Shin Megami on a next-gen console, it's going to look awesome.
Yes, that is true, and that makes me happy. So tell us more about Overclocked.
But yeah, one of the coolest things they added is it's a system of achievements, and it's achievements. And in a strategy RPG, that's kind of fun because it gives you a little something more to shoot for. So there is a lot of stuff there if you've already played the game to just kind of get a little more out of it. And the new story in the 8th day scenarios is cool. One of the routes actually has 2 different ways for the 8th day to play out, and the game doesn't force you to replay the whole game. So it manages to avoid that pitfall of, they re-release a game and then you have to replay through all this stuff you did before to get something very minor, like the Chrono Trigger on DS. The new dungeon sucked, the new final boss was stupid, and you had to play through not that playing through Chrono Trigger is bad, but if you've played Chrono Trigger 100 times, you're going to be disappointed. In this case, they make it so easy to get to the new content that it's not at all frustrating. And plus, the game is just better with the turbo mode on, because if you want to grind, you want to build up crazy awesome demons, because there are new demons and there are some new skills. It's definitely accessible. And if you haven't played it, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't, because it's completely awesome. The story is great. The combat is really tight. I mean, it's a Shin Megami game, and it's my second favorite one after Digital Devil Saga 2, which for me is saying something, because
I still need to play those. I'm not trying to troll here. I'm really not, but I am going to ask a question because it is getting to me a little bit, and I don't want to take too much away from news. But we just had Persona 4 The Golden announced for PlayStation Vita. We've had Persona 3 end up on PSP. We now have Overclocked. Like, am I the only one that kind of feels like Atlas kind of milking stuff a little bit? Like, I'd rather see new content. Like, don't get me wrong, it's awesome for someone like me who didn't play Persona 3 when it came out to play Fez.
They are still giving us lots of new games, though. Atlas USA in particular is localizing a lot of stuff that you'd never see them localize in the past.
Okay, so let me rephrase. Maybe I want to see the Shin Megami Tensei guys. I want to see the guys that are working on that series and all of its spin-offs. I'd rather see new stuff, even if it is.
Wow. Hey, Rob, do you know what that team just developed? I hear it's this puzzle game where you pull blocks.
Yeah, and that wasn't fun.
No,
that's a brand new game with a brand new concept, Rob.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
They're making Persona 5 too. Yeah. It's been admitted they're making Persona 5. So.
Did they admit it? I was looking for that.
Yeah, I mean they flat out said that the people were developing it and stuff. It was on Silicon Era.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah, I don't think they're milking it so much because they don't really make a habit of that, because they legitimately added stuff to this game. Like, it's not like when Square Enix, again, to bring up Chrono Trigger DS had a nice interface and a new translation, but for all intents and purposes, it was just a straight port with some...
Right, and I'm not trying to fight with them, I'm not trying to be like, oh, you guys are giving us more content, I'm mad at you. But, like, I guess I just don't have... If I played Devil Survivor, if I played it once, I know me as a gamer, I wouldn't pick up Overclocked because I'm like, well, I already played this once and there's a ton of new stuff coming out. I think it's great for the people that missed it. Again, I missed Persona 3 the first time. So playing Fez was freaking awesome. But like...
Well, and Fez is a different story. You know what? I hear you on re-releases and ports. Fez was a totally different story. In Japan, you could buy Fez as a separate expansion.
Right.
And
I think that's huge.
The game in America, buying Persona 3 with Fez, was less expensive than buying the original game. They released it at $29.99.
Yeah, it was awesome. I
have to disagree about Fez being kind of a cash-in or something because
I just think it started a weird trend. Like I'm very conflicted here. Like we have HD releases coming out of like Metal Gear Solid and Zone of the Enders and all this. See, can never go through a podcast without mentioning Metal Gear. But like we're having all these
blah 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 blah.
Blah blah. Thank you to the reader who sent us the email saying, he pretty well scripted out the podcast, and one of Rob's lines was blah blah Metal Gear Solid blah.
What was the other line? It was like Barkley shut up and jam, and then
because we talked about Barkley shut up and jam Gaiden,
which I played.
And then I was like, I love Vampire, and then John tried to say something else, and I was like, Vampire is the best game ever.
So people are listening to us, and they get Rob pretty well.
No, I don't know. I'm finding myself with so much limited time to play games these days. Like, I barely got any of Space Marine in this week because it was like the first week of school and this, that, and the other thing. And like, I don't have time to play re-releases as much as I'd like to. It doesn't mean that I don't.
But you don't have to. That's the thing. Like one thing that I've noticed, and this is something. A lot of the audience for RPGs and JRPGs in particular are younger.
Right.
JRPGs, all of us right now that are recording this, we're in our mid to late 20s. And, we all have jobs. We all have, stuff that we have to do outside of, gaming. We don't have the kind of time that we had when
it takes a lot of time for me to get my drink on.
That's where Zach really is right now. He just didn't give the podcast. He wanted to drink. Thanks, Zach.
Well, he just got back from Japan. Give him a break, dude. You got to get over that. I still miss it.
No, but John's right, and I think that it's hard to decide how you're going to spend your time. Like, it's funny, in the middle of the summer, I just kind of like planned out my whole fall. I was like, okay, we got Deus Ex at the end of August, and then I got a little bit of a break, and then I got Dark Souls. I'll have about 2 weeks to play that, and then Arkham City comes out. I have a couple weeks to play that, and then freaking Skyrim comes out, and if Diablo 3 comes out, it just nukes the whole fall holiday season. It's like Diablo 3 is just like the red missile button that just annihilates everything.
All right, dude, Rob, let's be honest. You're exaggerating here. Diablo 3 doesn't nuke the whole holiday season. It nukes the next several months.
Yeah, that's true.
And then after about 2 months, another several months. And then after about 2 months, another several months ad nauseum.
You know, one thing that I find interesting is when I was younger, I played almost exclusively role-playing games. You know, I would go from Phantasy Star to, you know, Landstalker to a bunch of different RPGs on the Genesis. And it feels like, you know, I love RPGs. There's a reason why I've been working on this website for the past decade. I love RPGs. They're fantastic games. But I find myself now playing many more types of games, you know. Instead of sitting down and playing an RPG for 8 hours straight, I'll play maybe Shogun 2 Total War, or, you know, I play a lot of NHL, and I play games that aren't RPGs.
Yeah.
And
it's nice to have a palate cleanser.
I thought about that too, and I think a big reason too is that back in the day, RPGs were the most complex games there were, period. I mean, you could dig in, and now a lot more games, you know, even like simpler concepts, you know, like a shooter is a lot more complex than they ever were before.
Do you guys?
So, I mean, at this point, you know, it's kind of like you can get immersed in something besides an RPG, I guess.
One thing that started happening to me, and I'm glad that we're on this topic of conversation. It sounds really cool. Is like I've started playing games that are really, really complicated. You know, like there's some even action games and RPGs that are super complicated. You know, huge skill trees, lots of variables that you can adjust. Do you ever just look at some of that stuff as soon as you fire the game up, and you're kind of just like, oh, there's so much to do. Like it's overwhelming.
I know exactly how you feel. Paradox. A lot of Paradox's games do that to me. Like, I love Europa Universalis.
Oh gosh.
But and that's pretty complicated. But I'll fire up some of their stuff like Hearts of Iron, and I go, "What is going on?"
And see, I think that one of the best games to like come along that was super complicated but like eased you into things at a really nice pace was something like Red Dead Redemption, which is this huge game with like so many different variables going on, so many different things.
But the base gameplay systems in Red Dead Redemption they add a little bit, but the base gameplay systems stay pretty solid throughout the entire game.
Right, but the world interaction is very deep, and it does feel like when I'm playing Red Dead, like I was eased into that world. Meanwhile, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, like after the third mission, I was just looking at the map, and I was like, okay, there's like 30 icons on here.
Okay. You and I are talking about different things when we say stuff to do then.
Here, John, I think what you might be talking about is a game like Divine Conspiracy.
Oh my God.
You jump into that game, and it's like, LOLs, here's some options, bro. Have fun.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm talking just strict things to do, like a checklist.
Yeah, no. What Steven and I think are talking about is the game. It just kind of drops you in, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there are a whole bunch of game systems here, but we're not going to talk to you about them."
Okay. I see what you're talking about. Now, I look at games very much as a checklist because I like to get my money's worth out of the game. I like to sit down and I'll be honest. I like to platinum a game every once in a while. Like I did everything in Arkham Asylum. I really enjoyed it. I did everything in Dead Space and most of Dead Space 2. Like I really like playing games that have like a nice checklist of things that I can do. I feel like I accomplished something. I feel like I'm getting graded at the end of the day. But if you just drop me into the world and you give me almost too much to do, and I'm kind of worried that Skyrim's going to do that to me, like I just kind of like regress.
Which I have no problem getting dropped into a world and just like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Because I don't have to finish everything when I play games, and that's been throughout my entire gaming life. I go and I'm like, oh, do I want to go do that? Yes, let's go do that. Do I want to go do that? No, screw that quest.
Yeah, and see, I try to be a completionist. I think I've gotten away from that in recent years. Like we talked about Catherine. I beat Catherine, and that was not because I was enjoying that game. I just wouldn't let it beat me. Like, I sat down and I beat that thing. I was on a mission from God to beat that. And, like, that hasn't happened to me in a while. But, like, some games I just never, I never finished L.A. Noire, and that's very uncommon for me. Like, I'm very much at least beat the game. And Steven and I were talking about how Steven only plays the game typically once, but he plays it on the hardest setting. I like to find a game that I can play 3 or 4 times. Like Dead Space 2, I must have played that game through 6 times.
I need to get that.
It's really good. Deus Ex Human Revolution, I'm on my second playthrough. I'm not sure if I'll play it through again, but like I'm on a second playthrough. Demon Souls, I think I've beat that game 7 times.
I find it very, very interesting that Rob says, I don't have enough time to go back and play re-releases, but he'll play the same game over and over again, which is something I've never been able to do.
Okay,
like I beat Deus Ex and I was like, I'm done. Bye.
That's a good point, but I think at the same time, I like to play. This gets back to me as a gamer. I like the games I like, and I really, really like the games I like. I like the games that make me feel powerful, that make me feel good at a game, or that G up with my gaming style. And there's very few of those games a year, and I just want to hold on to them. Like Resident Evil 4, I don't even want to know how many times I played that game through.
Rob, you are going to think that I am trolling the crap out of you, but you need to play Toy Story 3.
Really?
I am not joking. Toy Story 3 has an entire mode and like half of the game where it's like Grand Theft Auto with Toy Story characters.
That might actually be really fun.
What?
It's called Toy Box mode, and it's just totally you go out and you're Buzz Lightyear or Woody or I don't remember who you are, and it's like, oh, there's a whole bunch of Grand Theft Auto stuff going on where you go and you pick up quests from different people, you talk to like the pig. And
the other thing I really like is I love choice in video games, and I think that's why I played Vampire through almost 4 times over the summer. But when I played Oblivion, for example, Oblivion doesn't have a whole lot of choice. Oblivion is very much a checklist game. It's just, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Meanwhile, Dragon Age Origins and Fallout 3 are very much, you complete a mission, you get to the end, you make a choice. And then you get something for that choice. And I love to replay those games and see what the other choice was going to be. I love that stuff.
Fallout New Vegas was very good at that.
Yeah, I got to give that game another shot because they really patched it and it's supposed to be playing better now. And I really want to try it again. The game that it should have been.
I just couldn't get into that game. My problem with that game was it wasn't a Wasteland. It was a game with the Fallout 3 engine that took place in a heavily populated area. You couldn't walk 20 feet without falling over somebody.
It wasn't supposed to be a wasteland, though. In the story of Fallout, kind of the Las Vegas Valley is kind of exempt. It's not like they got hit by a bomb,
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that, though. Fallout is about a wasteland. I mean, it's not Fallout if the place is perfectly fine. It's just like going through a trashy town. I mean, what's different about that in regular Las Vegas?
Oh, not.
Oh, snap.
I don't talk about your hometown.
You don't know what his hometown is.
He's from somewhere up northeast because all them places are the same.
Hey. All them places. Those people don't have pretty mouths. So, very good discussion, guys, but I think we should probably get into news. Can we...
Rob is just trying to save John from kicking my ass.
Yes, it's true.
We've got a little bit of time. I mean, do we want to... Did we have a third game that we wanted to talk about? I don't remember.
I really haven't been playing a whole lot of RV. Can I talk about Vampire for an hour?
Can I...
Look, we have 45 minutes before I have to go fantasy draft a hockey team.
So
crap, I forgot about that completely.
Does that
No. The RPG fantasy hockey team got pushed back, and both of you guys need to go sign up.
I'm not going to play fantasy hockey. I'm sorry.
Oh.
So wait, does that mean I can talk about Vampire for an hour?
No, we don't have an hour.
Oh, guys, if you want me, I'm going to go to the listeners on this. Because I've tried to get a vampire podcast together. Y'all want me to talk about Vampire for an hour on a podcast? Just
email John.
Email John, and John will never let me see the email.
So, you know what, Rob, you're welcome to have a vampire podcast, and it'll be a monologue.
Why? Why do you hate that game?
I don't. I have no desire to talk about it. You know what? I played it. What was it? 6 years ago when it came out, and I really got everything I needed out of the game 6 years ago. Did I buy it again when it was on Steam sale for $5? Yes, I did. do I feel the need to talk about a game that was neither a classic nor a giant misstep in the world of RPGs? No.
But you know what the one thing is about that game that just it really gets me, and it really it keeps bringing me back. I don't think I've ever played a game that had that higher replay value, because every vampire class was different. And now, granted, some vampire classes are not fun to play as in that game. Like after about an hour going through the sewers as a Nosferatu, you start to get a little pissed off. Meanwhile, if you play as like a Malkavian, you're just having fun and yelling at stop signs. But like, it's just, I kept playing that game and I was getting a completely different experience every time I played it. And to me, that was just so amazing. And yes, the game completely folds in on itself, but just, if they make a Deus Ex 2, I want it to be as open as Vampire. And I think maybe I'm asking for way too much there, because you're asking for so much non-linear gameplay, but
Troika was amazing at that, but there's a reason why Troika only had 2 games.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. No, it's a good point. It's a good point. It's just to me, Vampire was just like the last of that really archaic, old school like PC RPG where you could just do whatever the hell you wanted and
they don't hold your hand.
Yeah, the I don't hold your hand game, and it's gone now. And I'd like to see it expanded on a little.
You know, it's not. If you go hunting, Rob, you might actually really like Mountain Blade.
Never heard.
Yeah, my roommate plays Mountain Blade all the time, and he swears by it.
Like it's a PC RPG from Hungary, I think it is, or Turkey, or one of those.
Those Eastern Bloc states don't like me.
Neither of those are Eastern Bloc states.
It was a freaking joke.
It was in poor taste.
No, there's, I don't know.
Turkish. It's Turkish, from Turkey.
Oh, okay.
Turkey. I like turkey. It's delicious. Goes good on sandwiches.
Wow. Every joke made by a sixth grade student going into the social studies class for the first time.
I'm just wondering.
Look, it's because I went to Hungary and I wanted some turkey, okay?
And the second joke made by every sixth grade social studies student.
Don't hate on it because you didn't think of it, okay?
I really missed podcasting with you guys. So, all right. This stupid.
I'll throw out real quick that to anyone that listens to this, I love Xenoblade.
Yes, we already talked about it once. We are going to have a Xenoblade podcast. I think we're going to try to maybe record that next weekend or the weekend after. I really want to do that.
Xenoblade fans you'll be seeing new people for this, because most of us aren't in Europe or didn't import.
Yep. And I'll be honest, Xenoblade has me so interested. I am seriously thinking about buying a Wii and going out and buying the European release.
All I'm going to say, in it. Just like I told you, Rob, when we did the interview the other day, it's what Final Fantasy XII should have been.
And that excites me, because as much as I didn't like Final Fantasy XII, I really, really wanted to. Just a couple of balance issues here and there, and I think the international or whatever it's called, the Zodiac job version.
Yeah, but the combat still sucked in that version. It was still just mash, attack, cast heal, attack. Yeah,
well, that's because the game has to load your black magic spells, and sometimes it doesn't. Which was weird, because nobody ever mentioned that in a review. Did you guys notice that? Like, it happened to me multiple times. It got me killed on the last boss one time. Like, the magic spells just didn't load, and he was just wailing on me, and I was like, casting Cure right now might save me. Why is no one doing it? The spell's loaded, and I'm dead.
You should have used an item, bro.
Happened to me multiple times playing that game, where I was just confused, and I paused and made sure that nobody was asleep or silenced or anything. No, the game just wouldn't load.
That's weird.
I don't think that was a fault of the game. That was really just. I mean, I guess they could have made it so it didn't do that, but that was kind of like a hardware thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been a hardware issue. It really could have been. I don't know. All right, I want to talk about the 3DS. I want to talk about this.
I don't have 3DS news. What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about how they're putting a frickin' second analog nub on it.
Is
this just a confirmation that the 3DS was poorly designed and it's going to get a reboot?
Dude, this is a confirmation.
Look, there's no way that Nintendo abandons a handheld. Especially, everybody's like, oh my god, the 3DS has bombed. 3DS has sold 10 million units. That's like the entirety that the Dreamcast sold in the 2 years.
Oh no, it's not the bomb that I'm scared about, John. Like everybody was talking all doom and gloom about 3DS. That's not what.
No, but I don't think they're going to abandon and redesign it so that you would have. You'd have to buy either this attachment or a new handheld. I truly don't think that's going to happen. Not yet.
I think that they're in a really difficult position because they're not going to get ports of GameCube style games because there's only one analog stick. The analog stick's not required, and if they want to be all competitive with the Vita, which they can say they don't want to, but they clearly do, they have to do that. But on the other hand, you can't risk splintering a fan base that's already small.
Yeah.
It's like the 32X, the Sega CD. Nobody is going to release games that require a second analog stick unless it comes packaged with every single thing.
The issue I think Nintendo is running into is Nintendo in the last generation with the DS, they could afford to not abandon but release games that were not always focused at the core gamer.
Uh-huh.
They don't have that luxury anymore because of the iPhone and Android markets.
Yeah. A lot of other podcasts, I know they've talked about it on 8-4 Play, they've talked about it on Weekend Confirmed. You have to start acknowledging the fact that handheld gaming is radically changing, and iPhone and iOS and the iPad, it's fundamentally changing the way people play video games. And as much as Nintendo and Sony want to say that they're not competing with the iPhone, they are.
I can't agree with it fundamentally.
I feel like they are.
I feel like Nintendo is competing, but I don't feel like Sony is. I don't think that I don't think that the Vita is coming to the same market. I think the Vita is targeting the same market that the PSP targeted, which is the hardcore market.
I could agree with that.
Yeah.
I could agree
with that.
The
thing is,
I think that go ahead. I'll write down what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Sorry. The thing with the iOS games and all these handheld games, I've bought a ton of iOS games and Android games, and I play them for 10 minutes, and then I never touch them again because they're all the same. They're just derivative versions of, console games with lackluster controls. Every now and then you get a game that's built for the handheld. You got like Sword and Sorcery, you'll get something like that. But the thing is, the games, they're not the same kind of games that you play on a dedicated handheld system.
I have more fun with apps that are not games but are rather game-like on the iOS than I do with the games. Like Harmonix's VidRhythm is hilarious.
No,
or Songify.
I would agree with you. I mean, I played some iOS games, and I think I even tried to review one. It was like Queen's Crown or something like that. And after about 2 hours, I just posted on our editor's board, like, I can't review this because, like, I just don't want to play it anymore. Like, my brain is turning to mush. Like, this is just terrible. But I think again, it shows that the market, the iOS isn't targeting us. I think it's targeting everybody else. I think it's targeting the group of people that went out and bought DSs and bought like Brain Training and maybe Super Mario Brothers and nothing else.
Yeah, no, they're targeting that much more casual market. And the point I was going to make earlier is the Vita is not competing with the iPhone because the Vita, I think, is if you give it a competition in that space, it's competing more with the iPad or the iPod because it's a standalone gaming machine. People aren't buying this to be a phone. And I think that it's going to do that job better than either an iPod or an iPad. And it's going to do it. It's going to do it at about the same price as the iPod, and it's going to do it cheaper than the iPad, even if the individual games are more expensive.
Yeah. And I also think you have to argue that the PlayStation Vita is going to be competing with the consoles because it's releasing at a similar price point to the consoles. That's kind of weird to think that we have a $250 PlayStation 3 out right now, and in a couple of months there's going to be a $250 PlayStation Vita.
But this console generation is very different. This is around the time that we would be seeing a new console. The Xbox 360 has been out now for 6 years. When the original Xbox had been out for 6 years, the Xbox 360 had been out for a year already.
True. Just to break podcast for a second, Stephen, where did you find that glorious, glorious picture of Dark Souls?
On our threads, on our board for Dark Souls.
Oh man,
that's the European box art.
Okay, why is it that everyone has better box art than we do?
Europe is getting good stuff lately.
Yeah, they got Xenoblade. So that's right, I know. Just to get back to the 3DS real quick, and then we'll get back to news. I just think that depending on how this goes and depending on pressure from developers, it wouldn't shock me if in the next year or with the next, I mean, because we all know they're going to iterate on the 3DS. That's just what they're going to do. They're going to iterate on the 3DS. There's probably going to be a 3DS Lite or whatever.
Yeah, they iterated on the DS.
Sure. I just think that the next version might have a second analog stick, and then all hell's going to break loose.
I think that would be foolish to the extreme.
They did that slightly with the DSi, where there were like 3 or 4 games released in North America that you had to have a DSi for.
Right.
And they didn't sell well.
No, true. We got to see. I think Nintendo is in a very precarious situation right now. I think it's the same situation that they were coming off of the Super Nintendo. I think there's a lot of arrogance going on right now, and to me, it's the same way it was with Sony. Sony was sitting there saying $600 PlayStation 3, everyone's going to buy it. And just now, years later, they're finally competitive. And they're finally selling at a decent clip, and they're finally caught up to their competition, their main competition. Nintendo kind of throwing their weight around a little bit. Wii U, people a little cold on the idea. 3DS, selling well, but not as well as people thought. I mean,
people are cold on the Wii U because Nintendo doesn't even know what the hell you're supposed to do with it.
Well, that's a good point. To me, Nintendo has really reverted back to their old ways when they were like, we're going to make a console with cartridges like they did with N64, and they said, we're Nintendo, this is how it's going to work, we're going to run over PlayStation. I just think they got to be real careful because they have a lot of really positive market share right now. They have a really positive appeal from non-gamers, from parents, from casual gamers. They have a lot of positive appeal, and I feel like they're getting close to running it into the dirt.
My problem is that they think, and again, I'm not the biggest fan of some of Nintendo's, like, those legendary series. Like, I mean, I think Metroid's pretty fun. I kind of like Zelda. I have never given a crap about any Mario game. Star Fox I never really cared for. And they can't keep marketing their entire system based on, well, here's another Mario. You guys are going to love it, and you're going to buy it.
Yes, they can. You know what? They can't do that to you, but yes, they can.
Yeah, that's irritating. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because they can just make it. They're timeless games, and they can market them to children. They can market them to. I mean, for God's sake, guys, we're getting to the age where we're going to start having kids. What do you think they're going to want to play?
You just said that because your girlfriend's in the room, bro.
No, she's out of the room, thank God. But like, my kid is probably going to be indoctrinated in Demon Souls, of course, because I'm crazy like that. But
by the time your child is old enough to play that sort of game,
they'll be playing it with their feet. You use your hands? That's like a baby's toy.
Baby's toy.
I have no idea what you guys are referring to.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, dude.
Oh, it's been years since I've seen those movies.
All right.
What?
Moving on. Give us some news.
All right. Professor Layton and the Last Spectre coming out in North America on October 17th.
Is this not only his 18th game?
4th, but not only is there the Professor Layton kind of adventure-y puzzle game, there's also a fully fledged RPG inside the game called Professor Layton's London Life.
Awesome. Does he beat people with his hat?
I don't know, but that's very interesting to see.
I'm excited now, John. That sounds kind of cool.
But yeah, no, that's very, very interesting that they're going to have a full-on. I love that comic. Steven just linked us to the Penny Arcade from February 13th of 2008, which is about Professor Layton, the first one when it came out.
Nobody in this game will help me unless I do their math homework. I have 12 Mystique. Sorry, I derailed us again. I'm good at that, I guess.
All right. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. There's going to be a special edition that comes with a gold controller. Ooh, you.
Is that the game everyone's worried about?
What?
There seems to be a lot of worry about it right now. Like the last time they showed it off, people were kind of like, nah.
That's because it's not Ocarina of Time 2, so ergo Nintendo fans must complain about it.
He said it. Now, please direct hate mail to Stephen Meyer and Cat.
Yeah, and later on I might even rant about Dragon Quest. I'm just trying to get hate mail now.
Oh dear God.
All right, more news. White Knight Chronicles 2 is out by the time you listen to this, probably. It's out this next week.
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Aren't you reviewing it, Steven?
No, I'm reviewing the first one. I mean, I guess I'll review the second one.
Yeah, I think that we've had a quest. Literally, we have been having one person that is going to review White Knight Chronicles for the entire time the game has been out, and it shifted from person to person because everyone seems to hate it.
I took it because I kind of enjoyed it when I played it on GameFly. I just didn't have the time to finish it, so I sent it back. But I mean,
But the second one's out on the 13th, and we'll have the first game with it. So with the new engine.
With the second game's engine, yeah. So that's kind of cool.
I might give that a shot. I mean, I'm still remembering that E3 video where I was like, oh my god, there's no way it's going to be this good.
And then it was an MMO.
NPD non-charting game, Dungeon Siege 3, going to have an expansion/DLC coming out in October.
Yeah, what's all in this thing? Like, I missed this news story.
A new story has been created where players leave the Kingdom of Ebb and head to the Aranoi Desert. While searching for a lost Legion hero, Lucas discovers the greatest treasure at the Azunai Faith. This expansion will also add many new monsters and lots of loot to the game. Increases the level cap to 35. Adds new abilities.
Is that the Diablo 3 beta?
No.
I don't care.
Well,
I'm sorry, that's not fair. No, it's great to see an expansion to the game. I think it's a little late, and I think Obsidian, if they can start working on their DLC schedule,
I don't think it's a little late. That's completely different. An expansion pack. I mean, Lord of Destruction came out like a year and a half after Diablo 2.
That was Diablo 2, which is like the best thing since Jesus Christ walking the earth.
Hold on, both of you. I think Obsidian has proved with the way that the Fallout New Vegas DLC was structured that you don't necessarily have to release DLC immediately after the game.
That's a good point, because Fallout New Vegas it's a good point, because Fallout New Vegas did jump right back onto the MPD again. So now John calls me on my BS, I'll give it to him. But if Dungeon Siege 3 charts, I still win the bet.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, whatever.
I still win the bet.
I don't care. 428, which is one of Chunsoft's adventure games or visual novels, is going to iOS. It scored 40 out of 40 when it originally came out for Wii in Japan. Not seen in North America. I'd be very interested to see if this iOS port comes out in North America. If it did, probably wouldn't have the same great translation that 999 did.
Please. Please. I really want it.
Me too.
That's what she said.
For God's sake.
Chrono Trigger Final Fantasy 13-2 coming out. Do
we have a release date?
No. No, January.
September.
Smarch.
Blasted Smarch weather.
When I play billiards, I hit for Stralids and Slipes.
So wait, is that in Japan or is that in North America?
No, North America in January.
Wow. All right.
Anyway, you'll be time traveling using a game's Historia Cross system, which is nothing like Radiant Historia.
No, and nothing like Chrono Trigger, even though they specifically mentioned both of those.
From Liz's news story, each area in the game contains a gate that needs to be activated in order to access the Historia Cross in that area. Huh.
Oh, Square Enix, will you ever learn? Just let French guys make your games from now on.
No. I am not going to jump the gun on this game. It could be very good.
And monkeys could fly out my butt. Do you guys see the news story about how Final Fantasy Versus 13 is now 100% in development?
Yeah, we talked about that like 3 months ago, Rob.
I know, and I'm still
bitched about it then.
I'm still laughing about it. I put a nice segue in there, but we lost it. Can we talk about Deus Ex numbers?
Yes, shipped 2 million copies.
Congratulations, Eidos Montreal. Good freaking job. I really hope we get a sequel.
The game also seems to be following the same route as games like Portal 2 did, where they get really quick price drops in an attempt to continue sales.
Yeah,
it's like $35 on.
Yeah, it's $35 on Amazon right now for the console versions, which makes me interested to know how it did on Steam and how it did on PC. I mean, obviously, Valve doesn't release numbers on that, which kind of bothers me. But
one thing that I actually want to turn into an editorial or podcast topic at some point is that prices for digital goods are so less volatile than prices for physical product.
Yeah, I got Final Fantasy 13 for $20, and at the same time I got Bayonetta for $20. This was 2 months after Final Fantasy 13 was released. $20. I was like, whoa. And I just bought it out of morbid curiosity at that point. and it was at a Kmart.
I don't like Bayonetta.
I don't either, but some people really seem to like it. I read that editorial. Steven just posted a really cool article on IGN about someone playing Diablo 2 for the first time. So
it's like being I can't even put words on how awesome that would be.
It's like being born again. But no, really good job to Eidos Montreal. We know what their next project is. It's the next Thief game. We're really excited to see that. Really, really excited to see what they do with Deus Ex. I know, and I'm really happy to see that a game, gets some positive press, a game that has problems, but really shows a love by the developers, and I really think they did a good job. Great game, so good for them.
Yes, absolutely.
Persona 4, The Golden, is coming out for PlayStation Vita.
We need to pick better names for titles.
We'll see if it keeps that name in North America.
I hope not.
I'm surprised they didn't just call it Persona 4 Portable.
Yeah. Well, which is awesome because Persona 4 was probably my favorite. It was easily my favorite Persona game. I played the ever-loving crap out of that game. Very, very good.
I need to play that one, and I still need to beat 3. I have it on PSP.
You know what I really want, John, though? I really want a Persona 4 fighting game.
Yeah, I know, me too. I have no idea where the idea for having a Persona 4 fighting game came from. Atlas is making it. We're obviously not going to cover it here at RPG Fan, but what the hell? And
no, Atlas is just publishing it. It's being developed by Axis.
Yeah, it's being
BlazBlue and Guilty Gear, and it has Persona 3 characters in it.
Axis published it. It's Arc System Works.
Yep.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Which is we're not going to talk about it, but weird and kind of interesting.
Yeah,
so.
I mean,
I would be probably getting it.
Our Arc makes good games, so.
And they did, and the team did announce Persona 5. So they did say that, well, not an official announcement, but an announcement that they're going to make it.
They said they're working on it. They said the scenario writer and the graphics guy are doing stuff.
I'm excited. I mean, I really would like a new Shin Megami. I'd like an official Shin Megami Tensei game on the new console, but I'll take a Persona. That's totally awesome. I should probably beat Persona 3. I loved 4. I just didn't beat 3. I got maybe 2/3 of the way through and just kind of. I think life happened at that point. It may be graduate school. I don't know. Something happened.
Rob, you should pick up Strange Journey, even though it's not next gen.
I have it. Don't you remember? We talked about it on the podcast. That game curb stomped me into a.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's because you suck at Shin Megami Tensei. I forgot.
I rock a Persona. No, I rock a Persona. But I'll freely admit it. I rock a Persona, but Shin Megami Tensei, that game just confounded me. I was like,
You know what game you will probably not like then is Innocent Sin remake for PSP.
Okay, I'll avoid it.
Because it's got that whole old school Shin Megami Tensei thing going on. Though honestly, it's not very difficult. So maybe you won't dislike it.
Maybe because I don't suck at games, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see who plays Dark Souls.
I don't care about Dark Souls.
What is wrong with you?
Dude, Dark Souls is the whole Mega Man thing going on. It's why I don't find Mega Man very fun. I like there to be some kind of margin of error.
Okay, that's true.
There is a margin of error. If you die, you get. Wow, I screwed that up. Damn it. If you get hit in the face, you die.
Yeah, exactly.
In Mega Man, if you fall on those scary spikes, you die. If the bird that flies out of the pit to knock you into the scary spikes hit you, maybe you should have shot him.
Yeah. Shoot him dead. Shoot him dead. Any more news for us, John?
Yes, Lord of the Rings Online expansion pack coming out September 27th.
Cool.
I'm really glad that is doing well now. I wouldn't play it anymore because it's free to play and I don't like that setup. But I loved that game before it went that way, and it's really awesome that it's still getting.
But it's been incredibly successful since it's gone free to play. We've seen all of Cryptic's games go free to play, which I don't think we actually posted a news story for this on the site, but Star Trek Online is going free to play, which I'm very excited for.
Yep. I know we're coming up on Kitty trying to steal the mic. All right. Yeah, you're going down there. I know John's got to leave in 20 minutes, so I want to make sure we talk about it. The big announcement out of Japan this week was Dragon Quest X.
I thought it was Diablo 3 beta.
Shush.
Sorry.
Tell us, John, a little bit about Dragon Quest X, and then we can discuss.
So Dragon Quest is like an MMO now, apparently, or some kind of garbage like that. So as previously announced, Dragon Quest X is coming out on Wii, which was a great idea when it was first announced. Not so much now.
Well, it's on Wii U as well, and it's interoperable, isn't it?
Yeah, true. So the game is online. There will be a cost to play online. You will have to be online to play the game, even if you're playing single player. And it will feature some kind of 3DS interoperability. We don't know how or what.
If this game hadn't been in development as long as it had been, I could see a giant backtrack like we saw for Dragon Quest IX. When Dragon Quest IX was first announced, it looked more like an action RPG, like everything was done from the top-down view. And then Japan just like screamed, thousands of voices cried out in anguish and then were suddenly silenced. And they just went back and were like, oh, okay, we'll just make that Dragon Quest game that we've been making for the past 25 years. If this game hadn't been in development that long, I could see that happening again. But I think
what I think is going to happen, at least in the minds of fans, is the same thing that happened with Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XIV, where it's pretty much going to be the one-off.
Yeah.
I don't see this being, people are going to say, oh yeah, so there's really Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 to 12, 13, 13 to 15.
Yeah, I kind of see that too. I think that...
Which, isn't that interesting how that works out? Both of the games whose direct sequel were online RPGs had direct sequels of their own.
Good point. I just think that from when I saw Dragon Quest X, I was kind of intrigued, and then when I start hearing things about subscription services for a console game, when I start seeing the combat, it just...
I think it's early on this. I'm still interested to see what's going on. I am skeptical.
Do we think it could sell?
It's got the Dragon Quest name on it, so yes.
Huh.
I don't. Will it sell in North America is a completely different story.
I think that's a negative because Dragon Quest IX didn't sell in America.
It's been very interesting how the past couple of Dragon Quest games have been published by Nintendo, which initially, when the DS first launched, Nintendo published the Square games, and then Square self-published most of the games on the platform, and then Nintendo went back to publishing the Dragon Quest games, which I don't know what's going on there, but it happened.
Steven, you were trying to say something in there?
I was just going to add my I'm not terribly interested in it, mostly because I despise Dragon Quest. And so for me, it's interesting to see it happen because everybody flipped out over Final Fantasy XI being online, but then it sold pretty well. I mean, for an MMO. And I can see the same thing happening here. It's just... I can't help but register complete apathy because I hate the art design, I hate the music, I hate the whimsicality, I hate the writing.
How can you hate whimsy?
Because if I want whimsy, I won't play an epic RPG that takes hundreds of hours. I'll play
do you know what's wrong with Dragon Quest is that every character looks like Goku, even the slimes.
Except for the women, they look like Bulma. Then the battle music starts, and the battle music is all like doodly 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 doo 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 doo. Here's the clouds, and everything's happy.
No, I'll give you that. I think the battle music and I almost said Final Fantasy in Dragon Quest IX wasn't really good, but I loved Dragon Quest VIII. I loved that game.
Dragon Quest VIII had a really cool world map, and I will give it that. And I was more entertained by it than any other Dragon Quest because I made it 6 hours in. And then I got tired of my characters looking ridiculous and the story being stupid and whimsical. And yeah,
I really like Dragon Quest VIII.
I just don't think it's my kind of game.
Okay, can I just point out to the listeners real quick that I am defending a JRPG right now? So everybody that says that we don't like JRPGs and, oh, Rob only likes Demon Souls, I love Dragon Quest VIII. Screw all of you.
I think Dragon Quest VIII is the best one I've played, and I played the ones they released on DS. I played 9, which I guess was also on DS. And I like the concepts in 9. I don't know. I guess it's the fact that it still feels like an NES game, just with a slightly nicer coat of paint and goofy writing.
No, I can definitely see it, though. But I think that Dragon Quest X is... I don't know. I mean, Japan threw such a hissy fit over 9, and this is way more radical. Like, I don't know. This is kind of... I was not expecting this. I was expecting Dragon Quest X to maybe be like a co-op game or something, like, battles were co-op with a friend to kind of tie into the whole Wii thing.
They did already release a Dragon Quest game for Wii, and it was absolutely abysmal.
Was that Swords or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is not what I was not expecting an MMO, and I think that I'm not trying to kick Square Enix when they're down. Please don't take it that way, but I don't exactly trust them with MMOs after the absolute disaster that was Final Fantasy XIV.
And you know what? You can respect them trying to save it, but the fact of the matter is the market doesn't have memory of that. The memory is not good enough for that, and it's already failed. No one's ever going to buy it again.
I'll be honest. I have trouble remembering that game came out.
Yeah, here's honestly what, and I hope Square Enix realizes. You know what? Do you know what you do with a failing MMO? You reboot it and you turn it into a free-to-play franchise.
Yeah, to get some cash flow out of it.
If you turn Final Fantasy XIV into a microtransaction game, yeah, you spent a crapload developing this game, and it doesn't have the wide range of computers that it can run on, like most free-to-play games. But you know what? I'm sure that they can make more money transferring this into a free-to-play game than they can selling the collector's edition for $20 and collecting no monthly service fees.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's actually John should work at Square Enix, but please don't leave, John, because we like having you on the show. But no, I think he just did it. I think he just saved that game because. And I'm sorry, but I just do not trust Square Enix with another MMO. Now, granted, Dragon Quest X has been in development for a long, long time, so let's hope that this is what they've wanted to do, and they've been working on it real hard. Like, I don't wish any ill will on them. It's just I do a collective head scratch. Like,
you know what? I just came to the realization of something is the Final Fantasy XIV subscription system, and I remember this from when I first set up my account. It had like crystal points or something like that, which would indicate, because you would buy crystal points and you could use your crystal points on your subscription.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been a precursor to they intended to introduce microtransactions even before any of this stuff happened.
Could be.
I don't know.
Could be. But I think we got to see. I think Dragon Quest X kind of surprising everybody. I'll admit the CG trailer looked awesome, and then I saw the actual game, and I was like, "Oh, that's right, it's on."
Do you know what MMO is going to be awesome though? The Old Republic.
I am cautiously optimistic.
I'll try it.
I like BioWare a lot, and I like Star Wars a lot. I don't like World of Warcraft a lot, and that's where my problem is coming from. Because even if you insert Mass Effect conversations into World of Warcraft, it's still a grind fest that involves. I don't know.
But remember, we were talking about this the other day, Steven. Like, World of Warcraft is completely different now than it used to be. Like, I would actually play World of Warcraft right now because they've taken the grind out of the game.
Yeah, World of Warcraft is like one of the least grindy MMOs out there.
Yeah, I would actually enjoy it. Like, it plays more like Diablo now.
I know, but it's I've played it. I've played it since they released Cataclysm. Like, I played my free trial or whatever. And yes, they've made it less grindy, but it doesn't change the fact that levels 1 through 60 are still incredibly boring. Like, it's just go here, do all these quests. Okay, go there, do all these quests.
What's interesting about World of Warcraft now is that you can go and you can PvP your way up the levels.
Really?
Like, if you go and Battlegrounds give experience now.
Do they give a lot of it?
I don't know.
Would it be possible for a level 1 character to kill a level 80 character within 2 hours?
The Battlegrounds are bracketed.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's level 19 when you can get your first one. But
so is there a reason why you brought up Old Republic, or were you just saying that it's going to be awesome?
We were talking about MMOs.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I think
I want to try it out. Like, I don't want to write it off. Like, admittedly, I'm way more interested in Guild Wars 2 because that game looks awesome. But I don't want to write it off because BioWare has a tendency to make awesome things. So
yeah, damn them making. I like how you said that though. It sounded like you were saying, "God damn them, they just make awesome things sometimes." Like we're mad at them for it.
Like we talked about it to death, but even their misses are still pretty good. Like I had a good time playing Dragon Quest thing, whatever it was.
Too many dragons.
Dragon Age 2.
Even BioWare's worst game, which is in my opinion Sonic Chronicles, was not awful.
No, it wasn't awful. It wasn't good, but I mean, it was fun-ish.
It's an RPG using a character that has no. And I'm going to get hell from Sonic fans for this. That he has no personality other than I am fast.
He has the personality of Jaleel White.
No, he's super cool. Yeah. You know what they need to do? They need to make a Sonic RPG. First of all, they need to finish it, because that was the problem with Sonic Chronicles, is that it was glitchy and unfinished. They need to make a Sonic RPG, do whatever they want with it, but they just need to make it have the storyline of the awesome Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, I'll actually go along with that. I loved that Saturday morning cartoon. Like, even the infectious theme song, which now it's in my head, and that's going to kill me.
Even back in the 90s, dude, there are so few shows that take themselves seriously like that. Like, it still had humor, but that's why that's the most, a lot of people love that show, is because it has, like, this deep plot. Not a deep plot, but the characters have personalities.
Yep.
And, like, there are ramifications to what's going on. Like, it's pretty dark for a kid.
Did the Sonic Saturday morning cartoon just take over our podcast?
Yes, it did.
All
right, let's all right. I think we need to cut this. So, thank you everybody for listening to the show. Steven, you want to tell people about what's coming up if they keep listening to the podcast?
Well, coming up next, Rob and I had the pleasure of talking to Darren Korb from Supergiant Games. For those of you who don't know, those are the guys that gave us Bastion, which is awesome. Darren Korb was the composer, and he handled basically all of the sound duties in the game. And we had a chance to chat with him for a pretty good amount of time. So that's up next. So please enjoy that, and please support Bastion, because it's a great game, and it's their first effort. So, hit it.
Yep, definitely. Big thank you to Darren on that one for coming onto the show. If you guys want to see more interviews, let us know. We're going to try to line stuff up like that.
If you are a person that has a video game that is in fact an RPG,
yes, if anyone's working on Diablo 3 and you should be finishing that game,
if you want to be working on Diablo 3 and you'd like to chat with me about it, perhaps throw me a beta key or
please.
We are willing.
Please
come onto our podcast and talk to us. We are willing to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's just a little tiny game. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. As always, please subscribe to us on iTunes through the RSS feed. Make sure to give us comments. Make sure to discuss on the boards. We definitely like to talk back and forth.
Podcast at rpgfan.com.
Yep, we are reading your letters. As
We do see them. We actually, over the past couple of weeks, we got several letters. I only check the account like once a week, so if I don't respond to you immediately, it's not because I'm ignoring you. I've responded to every letter that we've gotten every time I check it.
Yeah,
unless you leave us negative feedback, in which case we ignore you.
No, we really like to get the feedback, guys. It's nice to know that people are listening to the podcast and enjoying it for the most part. So thanks again, everybody, and stay tuned for the interview, and then hopefully next time we're going to be talking about Xenoblade. So later.
Look, Big Daddy, it's regular Daddy.
Sigh. Well, welcome everybody to a special portion of Random Encounter, the RPG Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Simon, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today, we have Stephen Meyerink.
Taylor's on the boards.
And we have a very special guest, the soundtrack composer for Bastion, Darren Korb. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. How's it going?
Pretty good. So, Stephen, this is really your thing, man. Like, Stephen went out of his way to organize this interview, talking with Darren, making sure we could talk about the game. So I'm going to let him take over, and I'm going to do something I don't do very often and just shut up.
Darren, you should come over more often.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Shut up. That's good.
Okay. Well, I guess we talked about it a little bit before, but, we'll just go over it again now so that way all the listeners can get it. Can we get, sort of maybe a little bit of your background and, music and what your tasks on the game were and, maybe a little bit like that?
Sure, yeah. So my background mainly is as, like a songwriter, performer, and things like that. And then, I got into production and composing, engineering, that kind of stuff. So that's my main background, and I hadn't really worked in games before Bastion. And on Bastion, I did all of the audio, sound design, and recording, and as well as all of the music composition and everything.
Okay. I know a big part of Bastion that a lot of people love, me in particular, is the narrator. Did you have any input in selecting the narrator or in how that was implemented?
Well, yeah, I suppose just because Logan, who's the narrator, we were roommates actually at the time that the game that started working on the game, and Logan is a friend of mine and Amir's back from we all grew up in San Jose, and Logan and I went to high school together. Amir and Logan played soccer together when they were kids, so we've known each other for years. And when we were kind of prototyping the game and just trying to figure out different ways to like tell a story in the game without like stopping, basically was our goal. We decided, well, hey, Logan's, a rad actor. Let's have him, do some narration and see how it fits. And that was it.
Now, has he done any acting? You said he's an actor. Has he done like voice acting before, or what kind of experience does he have?
Mostly like theater kind of stuff and like small film projects.
Very cool.
Yeah, he's he's a good dude. But yeah, this is kind of his first real voice work, I believe.
Yeah, we need to make sure he does more things.
I totally agree.
That smooth, like, jazz voice just had me, like, in that world, and I really appreciate it. And it was such an interesting way of telling the story with a narrator. When you first hear that Bastion is going to be telling you the story through a narrator, you start going, wow, that's going to be really annoying. But he doesn't say, like, he kills the guy, he kills the next guy, he kills the next guy. There's, like, a style to it. Did you have any part in the writing of that aspect?
So basically all the writing was done by Greg Kasavan. Logan and I would edit a word here and there sometimes when we were recording, but no, Greg did all the principal writing. And Amir kind of acted as his editor a little bit, but yeah, Greg was the writer.
Now, I was actually curious too, because I know, I guess it's like the elephant in the room, I guess. Greg used to write for GameSpot. I remember, I practically grew up reading, the stuff he wrote, and I remember he left to say he was making games. How did you meet Greg? Was he already on the team, or did he, and all the developers and stuff?
So Amir worked at EA LA with Greg and Gavin, who are, Gavin is a co-founder of the company, and even when they were working at EA LA, like kind of towards the end, they had just been shooting around some ideas about wouldn't it be fun to, leave all this nonsense and go and just
make Bastion.
Yeah, make something cool like by ourselves. So Greg, definitely like he's got involved because of Amir's kind of relationship with him, and they were roommates actually at one point in LA when they were both working at EA for a bit.
Okay, and then I guess it must have also been the digital distribution must have made it much easier for you guys to get this game, developed and published and all that, just because you didn't need like a big publisher and all that. Was oh man, this one's difficult. I guess was the fact that you could release it digitally and not have to release it brick and mortar, go through all publisher and all that nonsense. Was that a big factor in when you guys decided, hey, we can do this?
Absolutely. A lot of the inspiration for the idea to start to try and do this was actually games, like kind of Summer of Arcade titles and stuff like, Castle Crashers and Braid and Limbo, more recently Limbo and things like that we really think are incredible games that are just like kind of like slightly smaller experiences in scope and just like a really nice kind of a game that reminded us more of like, the way games kind of used to be, which we really enjoyed.
The classics.
Yeah, and also, it just makes it feasible for a small company like us to get our game to a lot of people. The model of just distributing physical copies of something into stores is so much overhead. It takes such a crazy amount of capital behind you to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm so behind this, this digital distribution thing. Like, I know people that say, oh, it sucks we can't get a physical copy, but it really opens up so many more people to being able to, get a game out there.
Absolutely.
And to get, imagine if digital distribution didn't exist. We wouldn't have a game like Limbo or, Bastion or Braid. And those games are like some of the most well-regarded games around.
No, absolutely. I think it's been one of the coolest things to happen, like this generation of games is just like the downloadable model. It allows for all sorts of different types of stuff now, not just like giant AAA stuff.
Exactly. Not everything has to be a Gears of War scale production.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess a small question. Do you think you'll dive back in and do another game soundtrack?
That's the hope. Yeah. I plan to work on whatever the next Supergiant game is. That's my plan. And I've got some other projects kind of going on the side, but that's my main focus.
I'm sure there'll be quite a few people happy to hear that. So What when you were composing the soundtrack for Bastion, what were some of your influences? Like, did you have like a concept in mind? Like, I know you said you had sort of a tone in mind, but when you sat down and said, "I want it to be like this," what did you have in mind?
Yeah, so a few things guided me to where I eventually got to, I guess, with the Bastion music. I think part of it was, an awareness of kind of the stuff that I had already heard in games, and I knew that I wanted to do something not really like any of that stuff. There's the like kind of straight electronic thing. There's like the orchestral thing. There's like the heavy rock thing, or some combination of those three. And I didn't really want to do any of that, any of those things specifically. And so I was based on kind of the tone that we were trying to go for the game and everything, which was like kind of like a gritty, like frontiersy game, but it's also a fantasy, and things like that. Led me to this idea of, well, first of all, to backtrack a little bit, I wanted, in order to create a bunch of music for something that was cohesive without getting repetitive, I wanted to set up a genre for myself, like right at the beginning, So I decided, based on kind of the requirements, that acoustic frontier trip hop was kind of like what I would shoot for.
You know what? I was going to say, I said, I got a really like Wild Westy, like jazzy vibe from it.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that's all in there. I mean, it's definitely, I wanted to make it, eclectic and kind of otherworldly, in that there's some like a lot of kind of exotic sounds and instruments, but also kind of grounded and westerny with acoustic guitars and stuff, and then kind of modern and urban with the trip hop kind of percussion.
It kind of helps to enhance like the wild atmosphere of the visuals. Like you're talking about a game that's very like, a tile set that's forming ahead of you. It's just full of color. It's full of like wonder, for lack of a better word. And I thought the music really complemented that well. It's not a soundtrack that I could readily hum, but it's a soundtrack that felt very much a part of the experience, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, it was very diegetic. I mean, you're playing the game, you're literally blazing a trail. I mean, it's appearing before you. And I thought, I first heard the soundtrack when it was available for download. I was actually coming back from Montreal, and I'm sitting in an airport, like, desperately trying to download it so I can listen to it on the flight. Nice. And, I listened to the first track, and I'm like, man, this sounds crazy. It literally sounds like this, like, Wild Westy, like, I definitely felt that vibe. So, I mean, in that way, I would say it was a total success.
Awesome, man. Thank you. That's really cool.
So I guess I think we kind of already covered this, but so you pretty much had full creative control. Like, did you have any back and forth with anyone else on the team? Like, they said, hey, can we change up this track, or hey, can we adjust the sound in this portion? Like, what kind of back and forth did you guys have going there?
Yeah, I mean, we had some back and forth stuff. I mean, basically the general way, as far as making the musical pieces went, I would, we would talk about, okay, we need like a town music piece or whatever, and I'd go and like take a stab at that, and then I'd come back with something, and either people would have comments and I'd do some adjustments or not sometimes, and we just had a piece. But sometimes it would be, well, so this world is going to have like a Byzantine kind of feel, and we need like an intense piece, like a normal, like set up the theme piece, and like a mellow piece, like all in that kind of vein. So we kind of grouped like pieces by world sometimes, and I did it that way. But basically, yeah, I had just sort of general requirements for the piece, and then I would go and make it, and then we do a little bit of tweaking sometimes, basically.
Okay, cool. And this next question is a little more general, but you touched on they were working at EA together, and they said, wouldn't it be great to develop this? Where did the actual concept for okay, this world's been destroyed while the kid was asleep, the whole idea for the game, like where did that come from? From what point were you involved?
Well, I mean, I was involved. So the game, evolved. It was pretty organic in terms of how the game evolved. Basically, it started out with some high level ideas about wanted to have an action RPG where you kind of build the world around you, and that was a really high, like, one thing that was an idea at the beginning. And then another part was the tone of like kind of gritty bleak, like Cormac McCarthy novel kind of thing was like another kind of influence we had at the beginning. So we wanted to accomplish those things, and then the story kind of evolved from those high level ideas.
I definitely feel the Cormac McCarthy influence at times. Like I had just gotten done reading The Road, and I had started playing the game, and it's very desolate, and that almost feels to contrast with the visual style, but it's kind of linked together with the musical style in a way. Like the visual style again is very poppy, very very like Wonder, and then the music is kind of I don't want to say ominous, but it definitely feels like it's almost oppressive a little bit, like
forlorn.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely a melancholy about it, and then you have the narrator also adding to that. So it's like this weird mishmash that somehow works in the vein of what you're playing. Like it doesn't feel like Fallout, it doesn't feel like Gears of War. It feels very much its own, very individualistic.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. I mean, we definitely wanted to do something that was not like a gray brown apocalypse. We wanted to do something where, and I think it falls in line with some of the themes of the game, where there's a lot of beauty to be still found in this world that's been destroyed. There are a lot of things about this world that are still beautiful and impressive and amazing and kind of fill you with wonder.
To talk about soundtracks a little bit, we had like a soundtrack episode way back in the day on the podcast, and we talked about how like game music is really changing, and in the pre-show warm-up we talked about NES music. We talked about classic NES stuff that you hum and it gets into your head and it's kind of there, and it feels like musical scores in gaming are becoming much more complicated. But at the same time, very few games have that score that you can readily hum. Like,
it's more atmospheric.
Right.
It's almost more like film scores now.
But even film scores, like, the Inception soundtrack, for example, like that, you remember those drums, you remember the feeling of that music. And it almost feels like some games are letting the music kind of fade away into the background. What are your thoughts on that? Do you see that happening too, or am I just imagining that?
Well, I just think it depends on the what is required of the music for that game. You know what I mean? Like some games require like a simple, catchy, like Super Mario theme song or whatever, and something that you're going to hear over and over again. Where a lot of games now you have the ability to have kind of more different music. And the less you hear something, the less likely it is it's going to stick in your brain. So I think it's possible that if you heard some of this video game music a little bit more, it would probably do that same thing where it drills into your mind like all the different Mario music. But yeah, I mean, I just think it really depends on kind of what's called for in the game that you're playing or making.
No, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. Steven, you were trying to say something?
Actually, I was going to ask more of a technical question. What kind of like software or like hardware do you use we'll go with Bastion, for example, when you wrote and composed Bastion?
I used Logic Pro version 8 for all the stuff for Bastion and everything, and that's I really had a great time using that. Actually, it just the tools. It just makes it really easy to go from like a concept to something kind of done very, very quickly. Just because of a lot of like amazing presets and just like really, once you become familiar with the software, it has it's like really, really powerful.
Okay.
So yeah, I use that and basically, I use pretty much like one microphone, I think, for like everything that I recorded live. It's like Shure KSM32 and a Digio 2 audio interface for the computer and everything, and use my closet as the recording booth.
I have to just get away from soundtracks just for a second. It's kind of a review question. Steven and I both do reviews for the site, and I know that if I was reviewing Bastion, I would find it difficult, not from any other aspect than the fact that it's a $15 download title. And it's very hard, I feel personally, to review the game in that bubble of a $15 download title. So invariably what ends up happening is we compare it to a $60 big budget AAA release. And, it becomes hard for me to sit there and go, well, if we say that such and such game is an 8 or a 9, and meanwhile Uncharted or Assassin's Creed gets an 8 or a 9, how do we make those things equivalent? I mean, I sometimes feel that the smaller download games need to almost be reviewed in a different way. Is there a feeling of that? I mean, there's so much pressure from Metacritic and from game rankings. There's so much pressure put on game developers today. Like, how do they respond to that? We need to get the review up, but we're also, even releasing a smaller game, we're basically in direct conflict with other titles. We're competing with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I don't know. For me, it's like, if the game is good, I mean, how much you pay for the game is one thing, because I guess in a review, value is part of what you're reviewing the game on to a degree. If a game is $15 and it feels really valuable for $15, and that's something that's good about the game, right? But if a game is the same game worth $60, maybe you wouldn't rate it so highly, for example. So I think it is something that is definitely, like, the price point of a game is probably a factor in a lot of reviews. But I don't know that, I mean, maybe, like, in terms of how big the experience is and how much of your time you can put into the experience, is probably mostly what I've, having read a bunch of kinds of reviews for our game and other games, it seems like that's a factor, where, if someone were to play, people feel like, for example, Bastion seem to have felt it's like a good value, where you get your money's worth out of your $15, which is, great. I mean, we're happy that people feel like it's an experience where they think they paid a good amount or less than they could have, which is something I think that's cool. But beyond the value, I don't know that the price point should,
See, I actually agree with that. For me, when I'm reviewing something, it's not a matter of how much it costs so much. Like, I'll say that. I'll go, all right, this game's $15. It's 20 hours long, and it's the quality of, say, Limbo or Bastion. Yep. That's a great value. But when I'm reviewing the game itself, I feel like I have to almost review it, not in a vacuum, but, you say, is this game fun? Is it not fun?
Absolutely, sure.
No matter how much it costs, if it's 15 or 60, if you're enjoying the experience, then in some way it is worth it to you. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of, how far is it going to stretch? You're much happier when you play a 3-hour downloadable game than you play a 3-hour $60 game.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you guys. It's just, I think that we get so caught up in numbers. I mean, what is the first thing that someone does when they open up a review? They scroll right down to the number. And it's like, I think what we really need to do in games journalism is we really need to say, this is the experience that I had with this game, and to get away from the number. It's kind of an overall feeling. Like, I agonize sometimes about what score I give a game, and I'm like, is it coming through in the writing more than anything else?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
It's difficult. It's difficult.
Okay, well, I've got two more, I think probably easy ones for you.
Okay.
Future work. If you're hoping to do another game, absolutely. I know this may be, going a little far in the future, but do you have anything in mind that you'd like to try, like in terms of audio, like, a theme, or, you're saying, oh man, I'd really like to do something that sounds like Blade Runner or something like that?
Yeah, I got some stuff. I can't really talk about any of it actually right now, but but I do definitely have some goals, for future projects and stuff that I'm really like creative preoccupations and stuff like that.
New Marble Madness confirmed.
Do you think the narrator would come back in a future game, or do you think that's a Bastion thing?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say. I don't really know. It's kind of up to whatever the new project lends itself to. I think the same team is going to make the game, whatever we do next. So it's definitely going to have things that feel, I think, familiar to people and identify it as a game made by us. But other than that, okay. But other than that, I don't really know.
All right. Well, this is my last question, and we asked you this before we started the show, but just for the listeners' pleasure, can you tell us your favorite game soundtrack and maybe a reason why.
Yes, absolutely. So Marble Madness for Nintendo, specifically the Nintendo one, and here's why. So first of all, the compositions, just the pieces themselves, are just really cool and just weird. They're pretty like off the wall kind of compositions, and the way they work with that game is just awesome. Just because the game has a really unique visual style, and the combination of those two things is incredible, I think. But what's also awesome is just the way the compositions work with the Nintendo synth, like what generates the sound when on the Nintendo. And if you listen to that same score, like for the Sega version or the arcade version, it just doesn't sound as good. It's just like different synths. It's just like it loses that magic,
Yeah, the Genesis and the Master System sound distinctly different for everything.
Yep.
But
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, Rob, do you have anything you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I have a question about the creative process. So you were involved with Bastion from the beginning. So you kind of saw tell me if I'm wrong, but you kind of saw the game evolve through artwork and through game mechanics, and so you're creating the music to go along with that. Do you think that that's a process that is usually happening in the games industry, or do you have experience with that? Because there are some soundtracks that you listen to, and it's kind of like the soundtrack is good, but it doesn't mesh very well with what you're seeing on screen. And then other games like Bastion, really, the music is definitely a part of the experience. You can tell that it's been crafted the whole way through. I mean, for you as a musical creator, do you enjoy being a part of the process from the very beginning and being given like a freedom to go about meshing the music with the visual style?
Absolutely, yeah. So to answer the first part of that, I don't think it's the norm, actually. I think it's much more the exception than the rule, because what will usually happen on a project is that the sound designer and the composer will be brought on kind of right at the end, just to like, okay, here's the game, put sound to it, like more like a like a movie score or something, like that's kind of how that happens usually, is like the composer will get like a finished movie and they'll have to score to exactly what's happening, usually, I mean, it varies, but so I really, it was just a wonderful kind of experience to be able to work on the project like this, because, it's really creatively fulfilling. It's really interesting because it's just this experience that I think is pretty unique, where we had the opportunity to have this really cool synthesis between all these different disciplines, of all these people who, on this team who are really great at what they do. Jen's art is amazing. Greg's writing is amazing. Amir's design is amazing. Everybody, like Gavin and Andrew, the program is incredible. So everybody's work is so cool. And when you have an opportunity to like bounce your thing off of their thing and vice versa, it becomes, like really, really rewarding.
Cool. All right, so we always on the show, we always talk about what we've been playing and what games we're looking forward to. So I got to ask you, what game have you been playing, and what is the game that you're most looking forward to this holiday season?
Oh man, jeez.
Yeah, I know. I asked the hard questions.
That's a tough one.
I played. Fan, we asked the tough questions.
So this was like, I guess a month or two ago now, but I played Clash of Heroes recently, which I thought was like super awesome. I had a great time with that. I just love the puzzling in that game and thought that was a lot of fun. Other stuff. I've been playing a little bit of a bunch of different things, trying to catch up on a ton of stuff. So I've been playing, I like every few months I'll pick up Plants vs. Zombies again, actually, and just like play it for another 20 hours because it's so awesome. Unlike I own that game on like 3 platforms. It's so good.
I've never played it. Is it that good?
Dude, it's so good. It's just like, it's so good.
It came out on Android like 2 months ago and it was free. And so I was like, all right, I'll try it. It's free. And my God.
Oh man, that game.
You'll play for 10 minutes. Then all of a sudden it's like an hour later. You're like, oh crap, I got to go.
Yeah, seriously. It's hard to put it down. It's amazing. And just the tone of it, and oh man, it's just like so funny and quirky, and the gameplay itself is just like so tight and so well designed, and like it's like a tower defense game kind of, but it's at its core, but it's just like super frantic and super exciting and really fun. Yeah, it's a great game.
Cool.
And then what was the other part of the question? What am I excited for?
Yeah, the game you're most excited for this holiday, besides Bastion, of course. But
Well, sure. Oh man, does Arkham City count as a holiday release?
I would say it does.
Close enough.
Because it's earlier than that, but I'm pretty excited about that. Arkham Asylum was wonderful. I love that game, so I'm very excited about Arkham City. Let's see what else. Oh gosh, I'd have to say
not allowed to say Uncharted. Not on my show. Not on my show.
You can say Uncharted if you want to.
No, you can't.
We don't. We just humor Rob.
One of the most overrated games. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I'll just keep it to one. I'll keep it to Arkham City. Yeah, I'm very excited about that game.
Excellent. Well, Darren, you want to tell people your soundtrack just went out for release. You want to tell people about that?
Yeah, sure. So we are, selling the Bastion soundtrack on Bandcamp, and as well as a couple different places. It's on iTunes as well now, and yeah, well, you can get a signed limited edition physical copy if you want, or buy a digital download.
Is there a way that the narrator can come to my house and just tuck me in at night?
I don't know. You'd have to talk to him about that. He might charge extra, but
you're gonna have a real solid night, Rob.
Getting drifted off to dreamland.
Yeah. Why does that sound scarier than I think you anticipated? Darren, thank you so much. It was great having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you putting up with my slow email process.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, if you when you're working on another game, if you want to come by and talk to us about that, that's great. I'm looking forward to another Marble Madness. So let's do this. So.
Yes, I wish.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a bunch.